Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Strength Workout. We're doing things just a little bit differently today. I'm going to take you through a full live workout, so about 45 minutes. The only equipment that you'll need is just some space. If you want to use a mat, the carpet, hardwood floor, totally up to you. You can either go barefoot or you can wear sneakers. Let's go ahead and get started. I want those feet about hip distance apart. Take a deep inhale, reach the arms straight up overhead, relaxing the shoulders down and away from the ears. Holding here a couple of breaths. Really focus on those fingertips, okay? You want them to be nice and long, right up toward the ceiling. So you're actually lengthening through that upper body. Growing a little bit in those arms. On your next exhale, take a forward fold. I'm just going to turn sideways. Take a forward fold. Exhale all that air out of that tummy. Go ahead and hang. Let that head relax between those elbows. Lifting those hips up nice and high toward the ceiling, okay? You really want to feel a nice stretch in the backs of those legs. Nice and easy. Let's roll up one vertebrae at a time. Really dig the heels down into the ground, rounding those shoulders to the back. And let's take that again. Inhale, reach up nice and tall, shoulders relax. This time on your exhale, I want you to lean to one side. Inhale, pull that belly button in as you get that body back up to center. Exhale, lean the other way. So these are what I call standing abs. I love this exercise, okay? That upper body, it's still focused on reaching up right toward the ceiling, right toward the lights. You're going to feel a pinch right in the side of those abdominals. And of course, right around that belly button area. Those feet are firmly planted into the ground. Let's go one more each way. Nice quick breath. You can relax that upper body down one more time. Dive down into that pool, get out all that air. Blow out all that negativity. Go ahead and wrap one hand around the opposite elbow. You're really loosening up those hips here, getting a nice stretch for those hamstrings, the back of the legs, and letting that head just kind of hang. Shoulders are still away from the earlobes. Beautiful. And let's go ahead, take those hands, we're going to plant them onto the ground. I want you to actually walk out into a high plank pose. We're going to drop those hips down. I'm just going to turn sideways so you can see my plank. But I want those toes on the ground. Hands are right underneath the elbows, right underneath the shoulder blades. Now, this is our most challenging plank. If you need to modify, you can always drop down to those knees. Otherwise, we're up on those toes and we're squeezing everything in that body. And when I say everything, I literally mean everything. Shoulders pulled away from the ears, lots of space between the two. Belly button in toward that spine. Glutes, we squeeze them, you clench them together. Quads, hamstrings, even the back of those legs, those calf muscles are fully engaged when we're up in that high plank, okay? So we're still holding, still holding, still holding. Let's go ahead and get that heart rate up just a little bit. Take the elbows, tuck them in against the rib cage, lower that torso down to the floor, hold here, breath there too. And on your next exhale, slowly press back up right to the top. So we're targeting the triceps, the backs of the arms here, a little bit of the biceps too, that opposing force, of course. Big exhale. We'll take one more just like that. Still just warming up that body. Should start to get a little bit toasty by now. Let's hold at the top. We're going to hold that plank. From here, instead of taking a full jumping jack, I want you to actually walk the feet. So we're going to tap to the outside of each shoulder and bring those toes back into starting position. So a little bit for outer thigh, teensy bit for inner thigh, definitely a whole lot for the front of that tummy, even a little bit for that back. Now again, you can always come down to those knees. You can tap one side at a time, or you can open up through those knees, balancing on those shoulders, those palms, totally up to you. Let's take one more. And hold that plank for me here. Hold, 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 squeeze, hold, breathe. Hold 3, hold 2. I'd like you to take those hips, hike them right up to the ceiling. Press that upper body into the ground. You can walk those feet in a little bit if you need to. Try and relax those heels on the floor as best you can. Okay, another great hamstring stretch here. While you are in this down dog or this inverted position, you can go ahead and rock one side, kind of isolate a leg, dropping that heel toward the ground. Get a little bit of a deeper stretch in those hamstrings. And go ahead, stop those feet, press those hips up nice and high once more. Reaching with that upper body, opposing forces through the hips and fingers. fingertips. And when you're all set, I want you to walk those feet out just a couple inches behind you. We're going to press forward on the palms, coming back into that high plank position, and right back up into that inverted V. Good. So we're going to come forward to high plank and lift through that navel, right up toward the ceiling, kind of like that seesaw. Still fully engaging everything in that center, everything in that muscle corset area. So imagine that you are wearing that corset. You know, it kind of feels good when it's all snug around you, sort of holding everything in like Spanx. Good. Really pull through that belly button to get those hips up. Just a few more back and forth. Let's go ahead and hold that high plank. So those shoulders should start to feel pretty good by now. Let's take one leg, draw that knee in between those elbows, extend away, and switch sides. So kind of like a mountain climber, but obviously much, much slower than you're used to. We'll go ahead and take an upper body stretch after this. I know that the tops of those arms starting to get a little bit shaky. Remember to breathe, maintain that nice natural breath. Go ahead, stop those legs, hold that high plank, just a couple more. Go ahead and come down to those knees, sit back on those heels, take that much deserved stretch for those arms. Awesome, we'll hold here just a couple of breaths. Go ahead and take that inside arm, we're gonna thread it underneath that outside arm, dropping that shoulder down toward the carpet. That feels pretty good. And same thing, other side. Let's actually come right back into that high plank position. So go ahead, rock back forward onto those palms, nice and wide with the fingertips, okay? Kind of like starfish for hands, coming up onto those toes. Once again, squeezing everything in that body. We're gonna work the tushy just a little bit. So I want you to keep that heel of the inside leg flexed. Toes are looking down. I want you to give me little ups and downs. We're not bringing this leg too high, okay? Just high enough because you want to feel something from about here to the back of that knee. Again, you can always come down to that knee if you'd like, so you're kind of in that tabletop position if you're modifying that plank. But no matter if you are above the floor with those knees or on the ground, you're still pulling that belly button right in toward that back. One more here. Let's go ahead and hold that high plank, hold. Take that inside leg, working just the inside leg. I want you to bring that knee to the outside of that same elbow and back to start. We're gonna keep that foot above the floor whole time. A little bit of a challenge here on that tripod stance. You've got two more. And go ahead and hold that high plank, beautiful job. Reposition that body. Take a couple of breaths. Let's go ahead and work the triceps again. We're gonna hover over that floor, lowering that chest down, a little bit of space between the body and ground. Big press away. Again, you can always come down to those knees if you'd like. And if this is even too much, you can bring that body into a tabletop position and just lower that chest down. You're not gonna get as far, which is fine. You're still gonna target the backs of those arms. Let's take one more. Hold that high plank. You've got 3, 2, go ahead, rest the knees, sit back on the heels. One more stretch here, I know. Let's actually take those arms, go ahead and sit up tall through the torso, right on those heels. Reach one arm up, bring it back behind. You can give yourself a pat on the back. We're only about a third of the way, or 10th, excuse me, my goodness, I can't count, can I? Quarter of the way through, but you've already done fantastic. Other side. Awesome, right back into that high plank. I promise, this is about it for the planks, till we get to the end. So coming forward, belly button in, challenge yourself. Last push, last minute or so in this high position. Take that outside leg, flex the heel, toes down, heel up, and we're lifting and lowering. Again, just enough to feel that little pinch. It's kind of a good pinch, a good squeeze through the back of the leg. You've got 3 more. So nice and strong through the upper body, motionless with the rest of the body. Go ahead, take that knee to the outside of that same elbow, extend back behind. Every time that outside foot comes back to start, a imagine that it's lengthening about a centimeter or two. You got 2 more. And we're going to hold that plank. Beautiful work. We've got 3 breaths here. And let's come down to those knees. Sit back to those heels last time. Last stretch in that child's pose. Feels so good for that small of that back, that low back, when those glutes come down toward those heels. Let's go ahead and rock forward. We're going to come all the way down to that belly. We're going to keep the legs nice and long behind. Let's go ahead and place one hand right on top of the other. And you can actually rest that cheek on the top of that hand. I'm going to keep my head up just so you can hear me a little bit better. With those feet, I want those toes pointed away from the body. Lift the legs up and off the floor so the kneecaps and the tops of the thighs are not touching. And I just want you to give me little flutters here. So just as we were in our nice high plank, I want you to focus on pulling that belly button in toward that spine. So you're almost kind of scooping out that center. And with the lower half, these are just little ups and downs. You should start to feel a bit warm from about the hips to the tops of those knees. And let's take these, we're going to scissor those feet this time. So one foot is coming right on top of the other. We are still challenging that lower half by keeping those knees and thighs up off the floor. A little bit of inner thigh and glute work here. Feels pretty good. Got 8, 7, 4 more please. And relax those legs down. Let the blood come back into that body. Give it a little bit of a breather. I want that upper body to come right alongside, those hands right alongside the shoulders. Eyes are going to look straight in front of you, maybe about 6-8 inches ahead of you. Again, with that belly button, we're pulling right into the back. Shoulders are away from the ears. I just want you to lift and lower that torso. So everything from the hips down through the toes stays nice and motionless. Kind of like a statue from the waistline down. Try and eliminate any kind of movement. I know sometimes that those hips want to rotate, or a thigh or two wants to lift off the floor. And with every lift, every exhale, you should be able to get just a teensy bit higher. And that low back should start to feel like it's working. Just 2 more like this. And we're going to take those arms, reach them straight above, still keeping the feet still. Swing the arms up and around, really drawing those elbows in toward that spine as you lift. So nice and slowly, we're making our way through that water. Go ahead and keep moving. As you draw those elbows in, I really want you to focus on bringing them right in toward the midline, okay? So you should feel that squeeze between the shoulder blades. Try and pinch a pencil right between those two. Lengthening through that upper body. And then driving it into the center. Again, trying to get just a teensy bit of a hair higher of a lift each repetition. We've got 2 to go. And I want you to keep those arms straight out in front of you. We're going to swim through the water this time. Lift the legs up and off the floor. So knees, thighs away from the ground. And we're fluttering up and down. We're alternating those arms and legs. Keeping that belly button in toward the spine. Maintain that nice breath. It's a neutral breath, so it should feel very relaxed, very normal to you. We've got 3 more. 2. Go ahead and relax those arms down. Keep those feet up and away from the floor again. We're going to take those heels, we're going to draw them in toward one another and quickly beat the backs of those feet together. So those heel beats. Again, we're going to fire up those inner thighs and those glutes. So go ahead and place one hand on top of the other, head down or not. Lift the lower body and quickly tap those heels together. You're forming that nice V with those feet. Toes are pointed away from the body. Low back really starting to work now. Belly button in. So you're still nice and tight through that center. Got 12, 11, 10, 8, 7, 3, 2, and relax. Phew! Those legs are probably a little bit shaky right now. Let's go ahead and roll over onto one side, okay? We're going to come into our side lying series. I want that body nice and long. You want one hip stacked directly on top of the other. So imagine that you have a rod or something that's actually coming through that top hip and landing into that bottom hip. It's keeping that body secure, right? So nothing in here is going to move. Let's take those legs, draw them in toward the chest. So we're in about a boomerang shape this time, okay? Notice that your torso is still in that same position. Let's take that top leg, bring it away from that bottom leg a few inches. That hand can either be rested on that top hip, or if you need some extra support, you can bring it down toward the ground. We're just going to take this leg, lift it up and down, nice and slowly. We're going to keep that heel of that top leg flexed. Toes are pointed toward me. Nice and easy. Imagining that you're pressing down. Maybe a spring is between those inner thighs. And it's a little tough to get that top leg down. We want that outer thigh to feel nice and heavy. Let's just take 2 more like this. On that last one, keep that top leg about hip distance apart from that bottom leg. Keep those toes flexed. We're going to draw that leg, flexing that hip. Feet come toward you and then extend through that hip. So a nice flexion and a little bit of extension. You're really going to feel this right in here, right to the outside of that belly button. Again, if you need to, you can always bring that hand down because we don't want anything from here on up to be moving. Sometimes when this leg is swinging, that top hip, kind of wants to go in opposition, of course, because that body's unstable. Let's take 1 more, and we'll go ahead and pedal that bicycle. Heel comes to the glute, knee to the shoulder, extend through that knee, and come all the way around again. Good. So we're still maintaining that nice hip distance between those 2 feet. It's very important that that top leg stay in the same plane the whole time. Let's go ahead and reverse this. So peel that knee away, extending and flexing through that hip. Beautiful. You get a little bit of a stretch for that quad as that leg comes back behind. You really want to lengthen through that lower limb. Let's take that top leg, hip distance again. We're going to turn the knee up this time, looking right up to the lights. Toes are in the same direction, so your feet are almost in that V. We're going to lift nice and high, abducting the leg away, and then slowly closing down. So it's very similar to our first movement, but we've rotated through that hip. So it makes it a little bit harder for that outer thigh, that piriformis area. Good, let's go 2 more like this. And that top leg this time, let's point the toes away from the body after it comes down. We're going to nicely drag that leg in above that inner thigh, extend that leg nice and high, flex the heel, and slowly close down. So we're still in that little bit of rotation with that top hip. This is just getting the body ready for more outer thigh work, my favorite. Let's go 1 more this direction. And we're going to keep the exercise, just switch directions, lifting up, woohoo! Toes come in and glide away. So when that leg comes up, oh man, really squeeze through that butt muscle. Let's just take 2 more like this. And we'll finish off with some leg circles before we draw those knees in toward the chest. So still about hip distance apart between the 2 feet. Point those toes away. Give me golf ball sized circles. Little ups and downs and reverse. Beautiful job. We're almost there. You've got 3, 2. Keep the distance between the legs, okay? Draw both knees in. Flex through those hips. So we're about 90 degrees through the backs of the knees and through those hips. We're going to open that book and close it right back up. You want all that movement to come from that outer thigh, okay? So the foot, the laces, everything from the knee down to the ankle, just kind of along for the ride. We're opening and closing. You've got 2 more here. And I want you to give me tiny pulses to finish this off, okay? I promise. This is it for the outer thigh. This is kind of like your icing on the cake. This is where it really starts to feel good. We'll take a stretch after this, and then we'll do some more tummy tightening exercises. You've got 4 more. 3, 2, and relax that top leg down. Beautiful. Go ahead, roll over onto that back. Let's take that working leg, draw it in toward the chest. Give a little hug so you're getting about that flexor muscle for now. Let's take this knee, drive it to the opposite shoulder, toward the opposite shoulder. You start to feel that stretch in that piriformis, that nice meaty area of that butt. Last time with the working leg, bend at that knee, placing that ankle on the opposite leg. Draw those legs in toward the body. If you want a little bit of a deeper stretch, you can always clasp underneath onto that hamstring. Excellent. Let's place both feet down. We're going to take those knees, we're going to draw them so that they are right on top of those hips, coming into what I call tabletop position. On your next exhale, I want you to take those shoulder blades, lift them up and away from the floor. We're looking at the belly button or the tops of the thighs the whole time, okay? I want you to minimize. We really don't want to look up toward the lights, right? Because when we do that, we start to kind of put that neck in a little bit of compromise. So oftentimes when people are doing crunches, they're doing this kind of like chicken head bombing thing, and you start to sort of feel like your neck's tired or it's sore. So you really want to get that chin toward that chest, about a quarter or so space between the two. Eyes are right to that belly button. Imagine that you have a seat belt right over top of that navel. It's yanking you down into the floor, so we're still scooping out that center. Knees over hips, toes are looking away. Let's inhale, reach the arms and legs in opposite directions. Exhale, circle the arms around, draw the knees in. Good. Inhale, reach and lengthen. And exhale, come in, crunch. Really contracting. You want to get all the air out of that stomach. Right as those knees are coming in, up toward the shoulders. We're going to take two more like this. Let's go ahead and take one knee, draw it in toward the chest. Opposite leg extends. Now the lower that leg goes, the harder that those abdominals will be working. So if you need to modify a little bit, go ahead and keep that leg a little bit higher toward the ceiling. We're going to keep those shoulders lifted away. Chin is tucked, eyes to belly, and we're just going to switch those knees coming in toward that chest. Toes can either be pointed away or you can look straight up. Up to you. I recommend pointing those toes away. We're always lengthening through those limbs. You ever wonder why yogis are so tall? It's because they literally get a little bit taller during each class. We've got 3 more. 2 more switches. Keep the exercise. Extend through both knees this time, so you're making that L. Good, you get a bonus hamstring stretch here. We always love a good hamstring stretch. And anytime you can add one onto an exercise, oh man. Beautiful, we're almost there. Watching those thighs come in toward the body. You've got 2 more switches. Go ahead, relax those shoulders down, draw those knees in. You can shake side to side, give a little massage for that low back. A little bit of a breather here. Let's go ahead and take those feet. We're going to plant them down, knees up. One hand is coming right on top of the other. We're just going to push through that space. So we are in a normal kind of abdominal crunch here. A little bit of active rest for you. Good, getting those fingertips through right toward those toes. 2 more, please. And on that last one, I want you to keep those shoulders up. Give me tiny pulses here. So getting just a little bit higher. Good, let's separate those hands, coming to the outside. Draw those legs into tabletop position. Really reaching toward those toes so you get those shoulder blades away, away. Good, 3 more. And relax the shoulders down. Hug the knees into the chest. Excellent job. Take another breath or 2 here. And let's go ahead, take those legs. We're going to really press the inner thighs, the insides of the calves together. Take those toes, look straight up towards the lights. Try and lengthen those legs as much as you can. So again, you're really challenging the backs, those nice big muscle groups, those hamstrings. I want you to take those toes, looking up. Turn the heels in toward one another. So once more, you're making that V. Shoulders stay down for this. Spine stays down for this. Belly button still being pressed down into that back. Go ahead and lower these feet down toward the ground, only until about that low back feels like it might come up, and then bring those feet back to start. So we're lowering down, and then we're getting that nice hip flexion. Toes are looking straight up toward the lights. This time those eyes can be headed in the same direction as those toes. Let's take 2 more. And we're going to take those knees, bring them right over top those hips. Shoulders come up and away into that upper ab curl. Hands come behind the head. We're gonna hop on the bicycle. So a couple things when we get onto our bicycle. I want those elbows out nice and wide. So they're really kind of only in that periphery, all right? I don't want you to actually have elbows toward the front. We're never yanking, we're never pulling on the neck. Hands are just kind of there for support, okay? If you actually want to take those fingertips and keep them to the outside of the ears as well, by all means, go ahead and do that. Your second challenge when you do this, you want to keep those shoulder blades away from the floor the whole time. So you're in that U shape that I call it a smile face because I like optimism. So you're in that upper ab curl, that nice U shape whole time, especially as you're rotating. So when you come to one side, you want one shoulder blade to come to the outside of that opposite thigh, okay? And as it does, you want that bottom shoulder blade to still be lifted away from the floor. Okay, so I know I threw a lot at you. Let's go ahead down onto the back. Come into that tabletop position. Hands back behind, big exhale into your upper ab curl. Go ahead, twist, rotate. So one shoulder to the opposite outer thigh, coming to center and extending a leg hitting each side. So nice and easy. By easy, I mean slow. And therefore hard. Good, so those elbows are staying away from view. You're working on those deep abdominals here. Shoulder blades, keep them lifted above the floor. You were almost there. Give me 2 more switches. These are tough, these are tough. Go ahead, relax the shoulder blades down. Hug the knees into the chest. Are we done for belly for now? I think so. Let's go ahead and roll over onto the opposite side. So you can actually flip away from the camera if you'd like. I'm just going to switch this way so you can see my beautiful face whole time. So once again, we're going to stack that body. One hip is directly on top of that bottom hip. Head is either in that hand, or if you like, you can even relax it down so it's rested on top of that biceps. Remember, hips in one nice straight line. Let's take those legs, draw them in toward the body, hip distance apart. So little known fact about hip distance. Oftentimes people think that their hips are like this far apart, right? Sometimes when you ask somebody to stand hip distance, let's lift and lower, hip distance apart, they stand much farther apart with those feet than is necessary. If you take a fist or 2 fists and actually press them together, that's about hip distance apart. Anatomy is fun, right? Go ahead, lift and lower, guiding through that heel of that outside leg. We have 3 more here. Yeah, nice and slowly as we close. 1 more, please. Keeping those toes in the same direction as the nose. Flex through the hip, point the toes, and sweep that leg away. So it's very important that you keep that top hip right on top of that bottom hip. We're still pulling that belly button in toward that back. You can even go ahead and touch that tummy. It should feel really, really hard, right? Especially as that leg comes back behind. The stabilizer muscle is really coming into play here. Let's take 3 more. Here's 2. And we're gonna hop on that other bicycle. This bicycle's a lot more fun than the last one we did, right? Try and get that knee a little bit higher to that chest on each repetition. So that requires a little bit extra hip flexion each time. Oh, so good. You should feel a good stretch in the back of that kneecap as that leg sweeps away. Let's go ahead and reverse this motion. So we're peeling away, extending through the knee, and then flexing to finish. Good. Remember that you get a little bit of a stretch for the top of that thigh as that leg comes back behind. And that hand, that top hand, can be wherever feels most comfortable to you. Let's take this top leg, extend it out, hip distance again. Rotate so that knee is looking up to the lights. We're going to open, flex to the heel, and slowly close down. Point the toes, lift away, and nice and easy. Really resisting gravity as we come down with that top leg. Oh, you are doing so wonderfully. We only have 15 minutes to go. That's nothing, right? Lift and easy down. Let's go 1 more. And that top leg, we're going to keep it hip distance apart. Point those toes away, still with the kneecap facing up toward the lights. Give me little golf ball size circles to the front. And reverse to the back. Nice. You're drawing a beautiful photo with the end of that foot. Keep that
that top leg lifted above that bottom leg, bend through the knees, flex through the hips, still about hip distance from those legs. You really start to feel it here, right? Even as that leg is just kind of rested in this immobile position. Go ahead and open and close. So that's what we call an isometric contraction. It's one of my favorites because you can do something like that almost anywhere. So whether you're pulling the abdominals in toward the spine, squeezing the glutes while you're, waiting at the checkout line, pressing against a wall for that chest. Good, just a couple more singles, lift and lower. I always find that one side is so much easier than the other, but it's a mental thing, right? You totally know what's coming. There's no surprises. Keep that top leg hip distance from that bottom leg. Pulses here. Your clincher. Good, again, we're really guiding from here, right? We're keeping everything from that knee through that foot nice and still. Got 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Go ahead, relax that top leg down. Beautiful work. Let's go ahead and roll over onto that back one more time. Take that working leg, draw that knee in toward that chest again. Get a little stretch. Oh my God, it feels so good for the top of that leg. So from about that thigh to that knee is where you'll feel that. Take that working leg, draw that knee to that opposite shoulder just a little bit. Okay, we're not getting too crazy just yet. We want to get the blood back into that high knee. Let's take that foot, rest it on the opposite outer thigh, or excuse me, on the opposite thigh. Draw those knees in toward the chest. If you want, you can always give a little bit of pressure for the inside knee of that working leg. And again, you can always hold underneath of that opposite hamstring. Excellent. Let's go ahead and place those feet down. So to finish off today, we're going to do a little bit more abdominal work in this supine position. We'll do a whole lot of bridge work. Bridges are my favorite. We'll do a little bit of seated, and we'll do a little bit more standing too, okay? So let's go ahead and start in that bridge pose. Those feet are firmly planted into the ground. Glutes are squeezed. We're going to keep that tushy clenched whole time, okay? So this time you have a penny in between the cheeks and you don't want to let it out, all right? So nice and easy. Keep those feet about hip distance. They're light on the floor. Glutes are squeezed. They're engaged whole time. We're going to peel that spine up and away from that floor, one little bone at a time, lifting those hips right up toward the ceiling. So you have about a flat line from the knees up to the hips, through those shoulders. Everything from the shoulders on up, it's as light as everything is in those feet, okay? So you really want to feel the work, let's say pressure, right in about here. And we're keeping those glutes squeezed as we lower the hips down toward the floor. Squeeze, 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 and press the hips right up toward the lights. So we are just doing a nice normal pelvic tilt. We will revisit these. We'll get a little fancy when we do. We take this movement nice and slowly too. So the slower you go, the more that those muscle fibers have time to contract. And that's what actually makes it feel a little bit harder, but makes it a lot more effective too. Excellent. Give me just one more tilt here. I want you to take those heels. We're going to lift them up and away from the floor. So now, in addition to keeping those glutes squeezed, we've got those calves engaged. I want you to take just a couple pelvic tilts here too. And I want you to wear that high heel the whole time. You'll actually feel that you can get a teensy bit higher of a lift with each repetition with those heels off the floor, but just be careful that you're not overextending. So that low back, of course, wants to feel like it's working, but you shouldn't have any kind of pain in there. Last one, hold at the top, keeping those heels lifted. Let's go ahead and alternate one knee coming in toward the chest for those marches. So rest of the body stays nice and still. We're just flexing through that hip. We're going to keep that same nice 90-degree-ish bend through the back of that leg whole time. Good, and we're still squeezing through the glutes. So we're sort of isolating one butt cheek at a time here too. You should really, really feel that pinch of that standing foot glute. Let's go ahead and hold that bridge. Keep those toes on the ground, pressing the balls down, heels up. Take that inside leg, look straight up toward the ceiling. Pelvic tilts here. We've got 5 of these. So if you hate this heel lifted, you can always modify by coming down to the ground with that whole foot. Last 2. Let's go ahead and hold at the top. Take that inside leg. We're going to draw it down, inner thighs meet, and flex through that hip up. So toes are pointed, toes are flexed. It's totally up to you. glute squeeze, so that outside glute really solid now. Let's take that inside leg, bend at that knee, place the ball of that foot down. You can reposition if you need to, still keeping the back of that body nicely squeezed. Let's take that outside leg, look straight up to the legs, and we lower down and press tall. Remember, you only have 5 of these. They're tough though, right? So you should feel this in the hamstring, you should feel this in the glute, definitely the low back, and a little bit for the hamstring of that top leg. Hold that body up, go ahead, drop, inner thighs meet, and flexing through that hip, getting that outside leg back to that starting position. We're still pressing those hips up nice and high. Last 2. And let's relax that outside leg. Coming into that normal bridge, you can place those heels down, still squeezing through those glutes, lifting everything, everything. Hold here just a couple of breaths. So that low back might be feeling a little bit sore by now. It's probably a good thing. Because you can't have strong abdominals if you have a weak back. Nice and slowly, like a pearl neck. That's coming down to a dresser. You want to drop that spine one vertebrae at a time. You have a whole bunch back there, so it should take you a little bit of doing. Still squeezing the glutes. 3, 2, once you get down, you can unclench those cheeks. Beautiful job. Let's take those knees, draw them in toward the chest. Last little stretch here. Excellent. Let's take those legs. We're going to extend them straight out. Bring the shoulders up and off the floor. Hands come by your sides. Palms are looking up. Remember, make it a little bit easier. You can draw those legs in. Challenge that center. You can drop those legs. Really focus. Hold your position. Hold your sit here. But I really want you to press one inner thigh toward the other, okay? So again, you're coming into that isometric contraction before those adductor muscles. So really squeeze, 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 squeeze. Hold 3, 2, take those feet looking straight up to the lights. Hands are about a nice U shape with those feet. We're coming into our dead bug. You can always modify by bending at the knees. I want you to drop opposite arm and leg and come back to center. So once more, we're in that smile face position. Eyes are right to the tops of the thighs or that belly button. Remember to keep that low back down. Maintain that nice breath. One more switch each side. And relax those knees down, relax the head down, shake it out just a little bit. Excellent. I want you to come into about a corpse pose, but we're not going to hang out here too long. Those feet, once more, are about hip distance apart. I really want you to focus on pressing the feet and the calves and the backs of the legs down into the ground. I want you to take those arms, inhale, reach straight back overhead. As you exhale, tuck the chin in toward the chest, come up slowly, one vertebrae at a time again. That head's in about that U shape, that horseshoe shape. Go ahead, come all the way up and over those toes. Hold here for a nice stretch. And then take that spine, make it nice and erect. You're coming up one vertebrae at a time. Shoulders are down and relaxed. Hold your position. I'm just going to face front. And I want you to take those arms, reach them out wall to wall. So toes are looking straight up, pressing through the backs of the legs, firmly down into that ground. I want you to twist from that center. One hand comes to the outside of the baby toe. Come back to center, twist and rotate. Now as you do this, you get a nice stretch in the back of the leg. And you really need to focus on staying nicely bottom heavy, okay? Which is probably not a term that most of us really like, but in this case it applies because that opposite hip often wants to come up and off the floor, but I want you to keep it firmly pressed down into the ground. Here's your chance to grow another inch from that torso. Nice and long through that head, through that spine. Go ahead and stop those twists, but I want you to sit up nice and tall, okay? Imagine that you're right up against a wall. This should feel pretty tough right here, right in that center and the low back, but again, it's that Spanx, it's that muscle corset pulling you tight. Hold 3 more breaths, nice and lengthened through the top of that head. 2, and relax. Excellent. Let's go ahead and roll back over. Let's go ahead and finish off our planks in a forearm position. Once again, you can either stay on those knees or make it tougher, and we only have like 5 minutes, so I totally recommend making it tougher. Or to make it a little tougher, go ahead and extend through those legs so we're up in that flat board. From here, I want those knees to drop down toward the ground and extend away. You feel a little bit of a pinch through the navel, through the low back. Everything else stays nice and still. It's just that lower half that's bending and then flexing. Let's go 2 more. And I want you to hold that forearm plank. This time, let's rotate from the center. I want you to drop one hip down towards the ground, bring the tummy back, and come to the other side. Now, the key here is to stay nice and low through that torso. You want those hips to still be nice and square to one another. You want the tushy down. So we're never hiking up here, right? We're nice and low. Let's go ahead and hold that forearm plank. Hold, hold, hold 3, hold 2, and relax on those knees, sit back. Last time in that child's pose position. Let's go ahead and rock forward into that high plank. We're going to take that outside leg away from the ground, point the toes away this time. I want you to hike the hips again, really lengthening through that top leg. As you come down, come into that high plank, but sweep that knee in between the elbows. Extending away, hike the hips, and come back to that plank, get that knee in. So a little bit of a double whammy here. Definitely hitting those low abs as that leg comes in. Trying to balance on those 3 limbs. Good, hold that knee in here, hold, hold, hold 3, hold 2, relax that outside leg, inside leg, point the toes, hike the hips up. Good, so you're on the ball of that foot, of that standing leg. All that movement though is coming from that center. It's the abs and the low back that are getting those hips up toward that ceiling. Last one here. We're going to hold that knee in between the elbows. Hold 3, hold 2. Let's hold that plank. Last little bit here. Squeeze the glutes, squeeze the quads, the hamstrings, the calves, everything. Should be nice and warm this time. Let's go ahead and relax onto those knees. Sit back. I guess I lied when I said our last child's pose was our last one. Let's come up to a standing position. We'll finish on our feet. Nice and slowly round up one vertebrae at a time, kind of like a rag doll here. We're going to round those shoulders to the back, drop them away from the ears. I actually want you to take a nice wide stance. Heels are in, toes are out. We're coming into our plie squats. And I want you to take those hands, coming wall to wall. Shoulders are still down and away, lower down, and press tall. So as we're squatting, you want those inner thighs down toward the ground, about parallel to the floor. You want those knees right over top those ankles. They shouldn't be anywhere near the toes. And all the weight should be right in those heels, especially as you stand tall. Good, give me 2 more here. Take 1 more down to the bottom and hold. Just as we did in a seated position, I want you to twist from that center, looking over at the back fingertips, come to the middle, and twist other side. So you're really isolating that lower half here. Challenge yourself. Drop about a 1/2 inch. Woo! Good, 1 more each way. And relax that upper body. Hold 3, shoulders down, hold 2. Arms look up, glutes lower. This is your last push. You've got this. Stay strong, stay tough. 3, 2, nice and easy, come on up. Relax that upper body down as you do. Oh man, you really feel it in the tops of those legs. Go ahead and walk those feet in. You can stay facing forward. Take a deep inhale, reach tall, just as we did in the beginning. Exhale, all the air comes out of that tummy. Hips look up to the ceiling. Standing tall, 1 more time. Biggest breath of your day. Inhale, reach. And exhale, all the air comes out. Lean forward, wrap one hand around opposite elbow. You can actually give a little twist side to side if you like. Kind of shake out all that junk from the hips if there's any left. Go ahead and stop that sway. Let that head hang. And nice and easy, go ahead and roll on up
That body nice and limp from about the shoulders on up. And once you get there, relax the head, neck, and shoulders to the back of the spine. Excellent job. Thank you so much for joining me.